Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Upayo bhikkhave avimutto anupayo vimutto ti. Dear Dhamma friends, so we all are practicing mindfulness with maybe one single goal, that is nothing but nibbana, or nothing but the liberation. So Buddha directly talks about liberation, and he strictly speaking mentioned Upayo bhikkhave avimutto anupayo vimutto. Monks, one who is engaged is not liberated or unliberated. Anupayo vimutto, one who is disengaged is liberated. So that means all the married people who are engaged are not liberated. So engaged, right? So upayo. So basically marriage also like kind of engagement and unliberation, but here we are talking more deeply how the mind be liberated. So various aspects in this Upaya Sutta Buddha highlights, and in essence this sutta is very much like discussing the very essence of the Vipassana, and in a nutshell. Because as we know, all our experience can be divided into 5 aggregates. Rupa Upadanakkhandha, the materiality or form aggregate. And then Vedana Upadanakkhandha, that is the feelings aggregate. And then Sanya Upadanakkhandha, the perceptions, signs aggregate. Sankhara Upadanakkhandha, the mental formations, volitions aggregate. And then the consciousness aggregate, the Vijnana Upadanakkhandha. Now typically, we don't think about in this line. We typically think I am living, I am experiencing, I am listening, I am tasting food, I am going through some sensual pleasures. So likewise we interpret putting a person to the picture and sometimes adding our own likes and dislikes, various biases, and very much like whole our experience is fairly biased. So when we see something, it is not we merely see, rather we are adding so much of our own additions, our own constructions, our own biases to the picture, so that the whole experience become fairly colorful. So in order to retrieve this information, in order to minimize the illusion, so Buddha comes up with a detailed explanation about the 5 aggregates. So the understanding about 5 aggregates is therefore one of the essential tasks of our practice, because the understanding of 5 aggregates, many arahants mention that very understanding has led them to the arahantship. There is one interesting Thero Gatha called Samidatta Thero Gatha. Panchakkhandha pariññāta vikkanti. So basically he mentioned, so the whole 5 aggregates he have penetrated. So now they are very much like palmyra trees who are cut off. Tittanti chinna mulaka. So now they are very much like collapsed. Chinna mulaka, they are abandoned, uprooted. So as a result of that, he was able to get the complete liberation, to abandon all the fetters. Sabbasava parikkena, all the fetters are abandoned. So that indicates that very deep understanding about the operation of the 5 aggregates is one of the very interesting aspects of Vipassana practice. So probably you may have already heard about the 5 aggregates. Let me summarize. Now the form aggregate is very much, we are considering the various physical aspects It's not only the present moment, but that is the what we can really experience. But when Buddha describe it in detail, so he include even the past, the future, present, and whatever is near, whatever is far away, and whatever is gross, whatever is subtle, whatever inferior, whatever superior. So likewise, many areas he has covered so that nothing physical is exempted. Whatever you can think of, any physical phenomena, so that is included in this definition. So on the other hand, we can say, so it's a kind of a comprehensive analysis of the whole physical world. So that is included in the first aggregate, that is the form aggregate. So to which we have a fair amount of attachment. And most of us actually, when we are thinking about our five sense faculties and the corresponding sense objects, to our eyes, the various forms or the sights, to our ears, the sounds, to the tongue, the tastes, to the nose, the odors, to the body, the sensations, tactile sensations. Now these are very much the physical world, and we are constantly trying hard to satisfy these senses. So all these are fairly physical. And on the other hand, we can consider more deeply, telling that the five aggregates in the form aggregate is fairly the four elements: the earth element, water element, air element, and the heat element. Anyway, I mean, on top of those very fundamental elements, we construct so many things, and then we are putting various names to them, and then we refer. Say, for example, now this clock. So this fairly four elements, but we forget about four elements. Now we refer as a clock. And we can have an attachment and we can give a value to it. And so much of defilements we can have based on that. But the very root is four elements. On the other hand, if we consider the feeling aggregate, so from the very moment that we wake up till we go through to the sleep, that we may encounter various kinds of feelings. Either it may be bodily feelings or mentally. It may be happiness, sadness, maybe kind of equanimous. On the other hand, maybe painful feelings, pleasurable feelings, equanimous feelings. So all sorts of different kinds of feelings that we encounter. And without our knowledge, we get attracted to them. And whenever we go through pleasurable feelings, we get attracted to them and we want to have them more and more. And we like to indulge with them. And as a result of so many other side effects are also there. So we want to have, I want that pleasure, I like it. So the craving grow more and more. So that raganusaya, the latent tendency of lust, is developing whenever we are ignorantly going through pleasurable feelings. On the other hand, whenever we go through painful feelings, I want to get rid of. I don't want it. I don't like it. So the kind of a hatred is there, kind of a rejection is there, repulsion is there. As a result of that, patigahanusaya, the hatred, the latent tendency of hate or ill will is growing. On the other hand, when we go through equanimous feelings, we are ignorant about it, and I feel bored, I want pleasure. So I want to ignore the equanimous feelings, so I don't know much about equanimous feelings. So likewise, when we are unmindfully, ignorantly going through the different kinds of feelings, unfortunately we are accumulating more defilements. We are promoting latent tendencies. So the sansaric life is continuing. So we can see, we are very much like innocent. We don't know. I am going through some suffering, so I don't want suffering. I am crying. I am going mad. I don't want it. But internally, a huge rejection is there, huge hatred is there, repulsion is there. So internally I am burning, I am putting fuel to latent tendencies. So kind of a trap in a way. Very difficult to come out of it. So when we don't know really the practice and we don't have practiced, so it's very much like ignorant, and we are very much captivated in this whole process. And more difficult is the perceptions aggregate. From our childhood, we are learning. As we are born, so are my mother, my father. So they are introducing various things. Okay, this is red color, this is green color. So this is sun, this is moon, this is dog, this is cat. So I am learning. Very much like innocent. And then we go to the kindergarten and the teacher is also introducing so much of things. And we start counting, we start talking, using various letters, words, sentences, grammar, languages. We are growing now. Past the O-level, A-level, university, we are growing. Accumulating a lot of things. So much of perception, so much of science. We are storing. A moving library. So much of information technology. So much of perceptions. And we are trapped. It's very much like we are like a fish in the water. We can't think out of it. Constantly we are thinking in terms of perception, in terms of sentences, languages. Without a language, can you think? So, are we going to die if we didn't have a language? So anyway, so these are very interesting areas for us to investigate how we are constantly being trapped in the conventions. Now, language is there for us to communicate. So I am talking to you in English, so you also can understand. So we are communicating. But how about if I am telling, okay, English is better than Sinhala? I want to abolish Sinhala in Sri Lanka. Let's have only English. Then all the troubles are finished. Just one language. So then the people they start to struggle. They go to gold face. So we are so attached, don't you? We want to have the Sinhala. Sinhala is our ancient language. Our ancestors have used Sinhalese language. This is our mother tongue. I want to protect it. So we have sort of a lot of patriotism towards our language, isn't it? I want to protect it. I want to teach to my children. Otherwise, they'll forget it. Are we attached to language? I'm not denying. These are the ways that we are taking too hard. So if I am telling, okay, this is black color. Are you agreeing? So we have the convention, okay, so all have agreed, okay, this is red color. So if someone is saying, no, this is green color. So then a struggle. I want red to be the first. No, green is bad. No, blue is bad. Let's promote red. They are not thieves. So this is how, we are conventions using, and we are so attached to them, and it is very difficult to remove those conventions. We are trapped, we are taking so hard these conventions and holding them strongly, and whenever we experience, we are putting all these conventions into the picture. Our likes and dislikes come with respect to the conventions, and I have some value systems to the conventions. and very much like we are trapped. And the sankhara, on the other hand, constantly we have certain mental states. We are thinking. We like to think. I have my way of thinking. I'm a, say, angry character. I'm a lustful character. So that is my way of interpreting myself. And I sometimes like that, isn't it? So if someone is telling you are a fool, so no, I have passed this exam. How are you going to tell I am a fool? So much of our own such creations, our intentions, what we did, and constantly we have this construction. I mean, whenever you see something, so we can't stop at that very level, and we add so much onto the picture, and we do this many constructions. Sankatang abhisankarontiti ko bhikkave sankharati uchchati. That is the most subtle thing that we do in our mind. Say, for example, if I show you this clock, so probably, so recognizing this as a clock itself is a construction. So we can't recognize the very bottom level, the fundamental level immediately. So I have my previous learning. So immediately I recognize it as an alarm clock. And it's a beautiful alarm clock, isn't it? Very beautiful. How about taking it home? So probably have a desire, isn't it? I mean, whenever, now this is not that expensive, but assume that you had a fairly expensive item here. Nowadays people are going bankrupt. So not a bad idea. So recently people looted, no? I mean, similar things. So, I mean, whenever we see something, we can't stop that very seeing. We add so much of additional things to the picture, and we are constructing on top of what we have seen, on top of what we have heard. So likewise, we have this inner nature of construction, inner nature of fantasizing, inner nature of fabrication. We like that. We can't stop it, isn't it? I mean, whenever you see someone, typically, okay, so you like him or you don't like him. So if another person see that same person, is he going to have the same attitude or different attitude? Now suppose I am showing this clock to 10 of you. Are all 10 of you going to have the same kind of attitude towards this clock? Or are they different? Mostly it is different, isn't it? So therefore, is the attitude depends on this or is it your own? So we have our own biases. We have our own prejudices. So we are adding all that into the picture. Now I am struggling. I mean, we all are arguing. You are correct, I am wrong, or I am correct, you are wrong. To the same thing. To the same trivial thing, but two people are now arguing because of their value judgments. So all these are coming under the sankhara. And when it comes to, say, the consciousness, now assume that for the time being, say you have a kind of awareness which is not distinguishing anything. Just kind of an awareness, not established anywhere. Kind of a pure awareness, not established anywhere. But you can hear, you can see, you can smell, you can taste. Things are going on, but mind is released. But is it the way that our mind operates? Typically, the function of the consciousness is to establish on whatever desired. Say there are 10 objects or 100 objects in a group. No, I am selecting among them, okay, I like him, I like her. Now I am focusing. So my mind is established there. I am severely focused there. So this selection, establishing on a selected item, is one strong function of the consciousness. So it is the one separating among many. So I am separating among the others, choosing among the others, and establishing on one thing. And after some time, I establish on another thing. Again establish on another thing. So my mind is jumping from this to that. So we are jumping, we have a jumping mind. And again, temporarily established on something. So this establishment, selection, rooting, based upon something, is one function of the consciousness. And on the other hand, it has the ability of recognizing, or what you call the vijanati, knowing to which that it has established. So these kinds of activities are there. Now on the other hand, all these are relevant to us, even though it appear like little technical. So this is how ourselves are operating. So all this Dhamma, what Buddha mentioned, is not something far beyond, but it is within us. So the five aggregates are not somewhere in another planet, but it is what we are. So close. Five aggregates are we are. So more we understand five aggregates, more we understand about ourselves. But unfortunately, we recognize, we identify not as five aggregates, but as a separate individual. I am so and so, my name is this, I am in this age, my education is this, my way of thinking is this is what I experience. So this is how we talk, this is how we interpret. And the problem will be more severe because we are fairly entangled. Another person is telling a different story, so now we both can't agree. More problems. But when we are trying to analyze through the five aggregates, whole experience, our typical subjective experience, now we can slowly take into the objective lens. Now we can stand back or step back and watch how things are happening. So this is where the understanding of five aggregates is so crucial. Now, Buddha mentioned one interesting point here. Rupa upayangva bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya rupa rammaṇaṁ rupa patiṭṭhaṁ nandupa sechaṇaṁ buddhiṃ virulhiṃ vepullaṃ āpajjaya. Now Buddha mentioned how these five aggregates are interrelated. Particularly how consciousness is based upon the other four aggregates. He starts with the form aggregate and he mentioned Rupa upayangva bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya. If the consciousness is going to be established, it either established on the form, that's the body or any other physical form, the form aggregate, Rupa upadana khandha, Rupa khandha, viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya, Rupa rammaṇaṁ. So that is the based. The now consciousness is based upon the Rupa, the form aggregate. Rupa patiṭṭhaṁ, established upon the form aggregate. Buddhiṃ virulhiṃ vepullaṃ āpajjaya. Not only that, once it is established, now it is growing there, well established now. Previously it is just put its hand, now slowly, hard, properly establishing, getting stabilized, stable. Buddhiṃ, growing, virulhiṃ, increasing, vepullaṃ āpajjaya, it's expanded and now firmly established. And not only that, Buddha mentioned by going through this whole process, nandupa sechaṇaṁ. So there's a kind of craving in the whole process. So whenever assume that there are many objects, among there are 100 objects, some physical things, Say your mind is attracted to something, and this is the very moment that you saw. Suppose there are 100 people, and all of a sudden that you saw someone, you like him, and your mind is focused. Now slowly it is growing. You want to see further, you want to see closely, you have some interest, you are now thinking, now overthinking, and ultimately into the mental proliferation, and fairly firmly established. So likewise, if we consider this establishment of the consciousness, therefore Buddha mentioned, it either established on the form. And then he mentioned about the feelings, similarly. Vedana upayang va bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaнаṁ tiṭṭheya vedana rammanam vedanam patiṭṭhaṁ nandupasecanaṁ uddhiṁ virulhiṁ vepullaṁ apajjayi. So whenever consciousness want to establish, assume that the form aggregate is not the most vibrant one, most prominent one, but the feelings are more prominent. Now there's a fair chance the consciousness go and establish on the feeling, because the feeling is more prominent. Say there's a beautiful song and you are being attracted and you feel really elated, lot of happiness, and the consciousness find enough space, enough food to get established. And then similarly Buddha mentioned sanya. Sanya upayang va bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaнаṁ tiṭṭheya sanya rammanam sanyam patiṭṭhaṁ. So it can establish on various perceptions, various signs. Say for example, while you are meditating, say all of a sudden that you get a kind of a mental image of someone at your home. Say you have a sick parent at your home, and you came keeping a caretaker at home, and all of a sudden the image of the mother or father come into your mind. So you give some value to that. So what has happened? Whether the caretaker is really looking after her. So now you can't remember this is an image appeared in the mind. Your eyes are closed. But now, even though the eyes are closed, now your mother is in front of you. Your mother has become your main focus. So the consciousness find itself well established now. What has happened to the breath? Assume that breath was really settling and it's going through a refining process. So you are calming down yourself, settling yourself, restraining yourself, and recognizing in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. Now the process is going through carefully, and it becomes subtler and subtler. So during this process, where are the consciousness is established? Suppose you do anapanasati. Where are we giving prominence? Is it to the feeling aggregates? Is it to the perception aggregate? Or the formations aggregate? Or the consciousness aggregate? Or the form aggregate? Very much like the form aggregate. Say, because you are experiencing the movement of the breath, so it's an attribute of the air element. Elements are the form aggregate. So very much like your consciousness is fairly concentrated on the form aggregate. But interesting point is, so what is happening to this the form aggregate? Say at the beginning it may be prominent. Suppose that you are having fair amount of mindfulness, not unwavering mindfulness. Now say your mind is fairly established on the breath without missing any breaths. Now you are able to carefully establish your attention on each and every breath. In breath, out breath, in breath, out breath, you didn't miss anything. So you are well focused on breathing. That on the other hand we can say, now consciousness is well established on the form aggregate. Are you agreeing with me? But interesting point is, this whole process now slowly become refined, subtler and subtler. The form aggregate becomes subtler and subtler. Previously the breath is more prominent, but now it becomes more difficult, isn't it? Difficult to establish. It's become subtle. It is not gross. If the breath is gross, then you can firmly establish your attention there. But now, it is more subtle. It's almost like disappeared. Now where are you going to establish? At that time, you get a mental image of your aging mother at home. A subtle mental image. Now what happened? Now you give prominence to the mental image. That is interesting. The caretaker is a naughty fellow. Sometimes he misses his job. He talks with other neighbors, ignoring your aging mother, sick mother. Now you are angry with your caretaker. You want to quickly give a call to your home, check with your sister whether is your mother all right. Now you want to get up. Now you are thinking, isn't it? So what has happened to the consciousness? It has found the food. Actually, the meditation process properly going through a very evolving process to make the consciousness unestablished, but at that very moment you get a kind of a sprinkling of this mental image, and you have so much of attachment to your mother. Now you are attributing this mental image to your mother, and you are thinking, remembering, mental proliferation. Ultimately you lose the whole thing. So this is what we basically happen. So likewise, so the consciousness aggregate either established on the form aggregate, either established on the feelings aggregate, either established on the perceptions aggregate, or it going to be established on the mental formations aggregate. Say you have kind of an angry mind, so you are burning with anger. Are you feel stronger at that time? What do you think? When you are angry, are you a strong person? As a personality, is your ego up? Or are you a kind of a passive person? What do you think? Say if you go to the golf face, are they really eager? They are burning, they are the youth, they are the essence. Say that is making a real ego. That's making yourself important. When you are having a strong emotion, you feel important. I am an important person. But when there is no such emotion, you feel kind of calm, quiet. You are just another person, not that important. But your self-view come forward when you are going through a strong emotion. Either it may be negative emotion or positive emotion. So kind of a personality, self-view is stronger. So that indicates whenever there is any kind of an intention, I want to do that, I want to do that. So kind of a motivation, kind of a driving, enthusiasm. So that all actually drives us, make us important. Our attention is fairly established on that. Which aggregate is it? The formations aggregate. So now Buddha very clearly mentioned, if anyone say that the coming and going of the consciousness, establishing and decaying of the consciousness, establishing and disappearing of the consciousness can happen without these four, then Buddha says it's not going to happen. So that clearly mentioned for the consciousness to have this coming and going nature, establishing and growing nature, or on the other hand, have kind of a rebirth, rebecoming process in the consciousness aggregate, it has to have any of these four. So Buddha very clearly mentioned there, so he basically put concrete onto the statement. Nothing else. These four are the ones. So the going and coming, coming and going, establishing and disappearance, establishing and growing, become more expanded. So this is the typical livelihood of consciousness. Now what happens in the Vipassana practice? So that is also beautifully mentioned in this sutta. So that is why this sutta is kind of a summary of the whole process. So very essence of the whole mind, how it is operating, and again what is going to happen during the Vipassana process is also mentioned in this sutta. So Buddha mentioned, Rupa dhatuya che bhikkhave bhikkhuno rago pahino hoti. Now suppose we do some kind of an activity to remove the attachment. Say you are having kind of an attachment to someone, but due to some reason now you don't have an attachment. You think that he is a good person, she is a good person, but later you understood, no, he is not a good person. Now, once you know very well, you have seen with evidence, then what has happened to your attachment? Say you have fallen with love someone. Actually, this is a beautiful simile Buddha is giving. Now he mentioned there is a young fellow. He has fallen in love with a particular woman. So she is a beautiful woman. Now this man is really loving her. Strong love. Giving everyday chocolates. So it's very beautiful. Things are going on. And he can't live without her. But one day a neighbor come and tell, you know, that girl I have seen with another fellow. No, you can't. That can't be. That never can happen. He is not going to believe. He is continuing the love affair. Another day, another fellow come and tell, you know, I have seen that girl at Goldface. No, can't be. She is not a person like that. She is a very neutral person. Didn't accept. Another day going on. And he is going on by a vehicle. And he himself see that girl having a fairly intimate relationship with another person. Now what do you think? Is he going to believe or not? It's not coming through another person, but he himself has seen. Now what has happened to the attachment? Maybe a little wavered, right? Now the next day he meets the girl and he instructs, I have seen you, don't do it again. Now kind of an advice and okay, I am not doing it. So a little bit of settlement. After some time, again another person come and tell, I have seen that girl with another person. Another day he is going and he himself sees that girl with another person. Now things are kind of shivering, right? Things are shattering. Now what's happening to the affair? What happened to the relationship? And ultimately, now actually Buddha mentioned that they are like husband and wife. And ultimately this man simply understood, can't control, can't be with this woman. I better divorce her. Ultimately, she was divorced. And after, now he understood everything and understood the character, understood the repercussions, all the, say, misbehaviors. That's how he came to the conclusion. That's how he has decided. And that's how the divorce has happened. Now what do you think? Is he still has the attachment in his mind? Can't be, no? Because that's why the things have now separated. Now, while he is going another day on the vehicle, if he see the same person with another person, do you think that he'll get a similar kind of a shock? No, can't be, right? Because that's the nature, he understood. That's why the divorce has happened. So that very kind of an understanding is what Buddha mentioned happening within the yogi. Because we are so attracted to these different kinds of aggregates, because we think that those are lovable, those are attractive, those are trustworthy, those belong to me, those may behave as I like. So we are attached to that. I mean, say your body. So you love your body, and you respect your body, you want to protect your body. You want to take care of your body. You want to tell someone about yourself to another person. You want to have a picture about yourself. How many pictures you have about yourself at your home? Your childhood, maybe your young age, graduation, your wedding photo. Many things, isn't it? So we are so attracted, so we are giving so value to our body. I mean, it's the body which is representing in the photo, isn't it? You can't have anything else, no? You can't have a perception there. You can't have, anything there. Just the image. So we give a lot of value to the image, to the body. So likewise, so instead of going through that, now Buddha mentions somehow, if Rupa dhatuyako bhikkave bhikkhuno rago pahino hoti. If due to some process, if this attachment, if this desire towards the body, towards the form is abandoned. Now this is the process of Vipassana practice. Say you are practicing Kayanupassana. So various methods Buddha mentioned to have the proper understanding. It's a kind of an investigation. Say you are analyzing the body as bodily parts. So instead of recognizing yourself as a man, a woman, a beautiful, this and that, you recognize this body as head hair, body hair, say lungs, sinews, skeleton. So when you analyze your body like that, what is happening? So various anatomical parts are there in the body. Any of them are attractive? None of them are attractive. So when we assemble them in a particular manner, then we can call he's a woman, she is a woman, he's a man. So likewise, but internally what we all have is nothing but the anatomical parts. And on the other hand, when Buddha mentioned, look at them as four elements. So you are constantly trying to understand their operation. They are manifested as hardness, softness, roughness, smoothness, heaviness, lightness, say flowing, kind of fluidity, heat, cold, movements, vibrations. Now this is our own body that we are trying to understand. So ultimately, if we go through this whole process, say while walking you are trying to observe this whole process, while sitting you are trying to observe this whole process. So ultimately what happened, that previous perception you had that I am so and so, I am meditating, I am a man, I am a woman, I am beautiful, I am young. So all those kinds of things are eliminated. Instead, you may have an understanding, okay, this is nothing but elements. and even the outside is nothing but elements. So you are having kind of a proper understanding about these elements, nothing but elements. So that helps to have fair amount of dispassion instead of passion. Instead of attraction, you have kind of a dispassion. Instead of holding, grasping, now you are ready to relinquish. It is not that you are forcefully relinquishing, but because of the understanding that she is not a good woman, she is not trustworthy, she is going with various other people, how can I be with her? Now that man is ready to divorce her. Similarly, the yogi, when he himself understands the very nature of these aggregates, say we are talking the body aggregate or the form aggregate, when that is well understood, the mind is now ready to relinquish. You are not forcing the mind to relinquish, rather mind gradually, effortlessly relinquish. Kind of a natural letting go, effortless kind of letting go, based upon the understanding, based upon wisdom. Now Buddha mentioned, interestingly here, ragassa pahana, vachitata rammanang patittha viññānassa nahoti. Say, at a given moment, whenever the lust, grasping, attachment towards the body is lost, abandoned, so when that link is broken, say previously you have a kind of a link between the consciousness and the body aggregate, the form aggregate. Now this attachment, this link between these two become weaker and weaker. Ultimately this whole link is broken. Now where are the consciousness aggregate going to be established? What do you think? Probably feeling aggregate, probably conscious perceptions aggregate, probably formations aggregate. So that is where we have to be quite careful. Suppose that your breathing process, suppose your elements meditation, so you are going through a very refined understanding that things are arising and passing away, these are very rapid. So as your understanding is growing, there is a possibility kind of a mental image appear, as I discussed, like your mother at home may as an mental image. So likewise, kind of a cheating type of things, completely diverting your attention towards something else, because now consciousness become more and more vulnerable. Don't have enough food to survive. As a result of that, it may try to find out something to establish. Suppose you are a skillful yogi, that you know the tricks of the consciousness, you know the tricks of the Mara, and you know very well what is going to happen in this whole process, Vipassana process, and you are not giving any chances for the consciousness to establish. You are carefully observing the form aggregate. It is now slowly disappearing, constantly arising and passing away. As a result of that, you are developing fair amount of dispassion. Now the mind is ready to relinquish because it has a thorough understanding about the nature of the form aggregate. And you are very careful not to give any chance for the consciousness to establish on any feeling. Not to give any chance to establish on any perception. Not to give any chance to establish on any other volition. What do you think? If you are handling, you can see how difficult it is. It's like a war. Say you are winning a war. You are going through a severe battle. And while the, say, ground forces are attacked, and when the enemy is going through a defeat, if they are getting support from another side, what's going to happen? You will be trapped. You will be destroyed. And you have to be careful to prevent that external support, isn't it? Say, what happened in Sri Lanka? Several times, isn't it? So when the government forces is going through the battle, when they are winning, outside interventions, interceptions. Say, India come and drop dal. Oh, the whole political things happen, and now again oxygen is given. Another time, okay, going through the whole process, they are defeating. Another party comes to the point, Norway come and have an agreement. Again oxygen given. So if we are going through a battle, if we want to really win, so we have to be careful when say I'm taking the ground forces, say when the ground forces are being attacked, so the enemies shouldn't get any other support from any other external sources. So we have to manage the whole situation. So similarly in meditation, in Vipassana, suppose that your ground forces is the Kayanupassana, and you are going through Dhatu Manasikara, elements meditation. Now you see the transient nature of various elements, how quickly they are rising and passing away. So your ground forces are now getting more powerful. Enemy is becoming more and more weaker. So what are the external forces? What are the external sources available for the enemy to survive? Feelings, perceptions, and mental formations. So you have to be careful not to give any chance for the consciousness to establish on feelings, to establish on the perceptions, to establish on the mental formations. They are very much like other external forces, other options available for the consciousness. Mere elimination of the forms aggregate is not enough. If consciousness has chances to establish on feeling, then you are defeated. If it has chance to establish on the perceptions, you're still providing some food for the consciousness, the weakening consciousness. If you are giving any kind of a chance through the intention, say you are going through the whole process, and whole body is now almost like disappeared. You don't have any kind of an attachment towards the body. And your mind doesn't have any, even a mental image. Mind has fairly getting empty. At that time, you get a kind of a thought. What am I going to do? So what am I going to do? So you are being little trembled. What am I going to do? I better establish myself on breathing. Now you are again looking at breathing. Again assume that breathing is calming down. Again getting closer. Getting closer to the victory. At least temporary victory. But when you are getting more and more closer to the emptiness, what am I going to do? Again you are asking. Your mind is asking. So what are you doing here? So you are feeding the consciousness. So this, what am I going to do? So this is how our ego come into the picture. This is how the I-making come into the picture. So we are gradually attacking the consciousness, weakening the establishment of the consciousness. But the fellow, at that very transition point, we are giving food. So that is where we have to be fairly skillful not to feed the consciousness even at that emptiness. So we achieved the emptiness going through this Kayanupassana, the form aggregate. And when we are successful in that, so we have to be careful about the feeling aggregate, perceptions aggregate, and the formations aggregate. Say you did it properly. then what is going to happen? Buddha mentioned, Ragassa pahana vochidata rammanang patitta viññānassa nahoti. Then the established consciousness is not there. Consciousness doesn't have any place to establish, any base to establish. Tang appatittitang viññānang avirulhang anabi sankacca vimuttang. So Buddha mentioned, so now the consciousness is not established, appatittitang, avirulhang, doesn't have any food to grow, not growing, anabi sankacca, and doesn't have any preparations, no constructions, no fabrications, because you haven't given any chance for the fabrications, haven't given any chance for what am I going to do. So that kind of even, you haven't given any chance. So you are very quiet. You are not giving any chance for any agitation. Andami sankacca vimuttang. Now the mind get free. Vimuttang. Vimuttatta titang. So once the mind is freed, it is still, has no place to go. Because you have abandoned the form aggregate, you have abandoned the feeling aggregate, you have abandoned the perceptions aggregate, you have abandoned the formations aggregate. Where is it going to establish now? Nowhere. Because Buddha mentioned, without any of them, the establishment of the consciousness can't happen. Coming and going can't happen. If coming and going, the movement can't happen, then what is the nature? It is still, stable. Vimuttatta titang. Titatta santusitang. Now these are the difficult parts. Titatta santusitang. Buddha mentioned, once still, it is contented. Santusitatta na paritassati. And once contented, there is no any agitation. And when we are going through even this process, a temporary kind of a freedom, don't think that is the final liberation, Buddha talking here. It's a kind of a temporary liberation, temporary freedom. But unfortunately, even when our minds get temporarily freed, we can't be there. We want something more. What am I going to do next? Next section, what am I going to do? Am I all right? What am I going to do? Oh, are we contented there? Are we satisfied there? Having what? Having nothing. Nothing is there for the consciousness to survive in a way. I mean, it is freed. No food coming through the form, no food coming through the feelings, no food coming through the perceptions, no food coming through the formations. But it is still, it is very much like, say you are going here and there, finding your home. Ultimately, you found your home. Now what are you going to do? Are you still going to run in search of your home after you found it? After you found it? No point, right? It's useless. So you are already at home. So this is the still nature is at home. That is the home nature of the mind. So why can't we contented there then? Why are we agitated therein? Now suppose you are done through the whole process, you are able to achieve it, your mind is calm, quiet. Why kind of an urge is coming from yourself? What am I going to do next? What's going to happen? And you can't just be quiet. It's very difficult. I mean, even though these words are there, once you achieve it, you can understand, we can't be quiet. We can't enjoy this stillness. We can't enjoy this quietude. We can't just be. It's the most simplest form of the mind. No thoughts, no images, no perceptions in the sense no any kind of scars or stains in the mind is very clear, no defilements, no formations, no fabrications, kind of a purest form of the mind, then why can't we be there? Why can't just be? So we still have a lot of agitation because of the inner boiling, inner sort of tendencies, latent tendencies. So that is where we can recognize, okay, still even though I have found a kind of a temporary freedom, still I can't maintain it. A lot of inner problems are there, inner gravitational forces are there, inner disturbances are there, inner enemies are there. They are disturbing. They are disturbing my freedom. I am afraid of freedom. Very much like. So we are very much like afraid of freedom. I think there's a book or something. Fear of freedom. Once we found freedom, we are afraid of it. Disaster. So we can't recognize freedom as freedom. We can't appreciate it. So these are the interesting points that Buddha very beautifully highlight in this sutta. And we have reached the 5 o'clock. We are afraid of power cut now. So as we are moving forward in our practice, so if we know the whole battlefield, what is really happening in this whole process, then not to give any chances to the consciousness to establish, and to be very clever, careful, to continue the process and go through in the winning process, then we'll be able to have a kind of a consciousness which is unestablished, which is free, not established at any place. And that is typically called as appatittita vijnana, or the unestablished kind of consciousness. Awareness is there, that's it. Just be at home. So with that note, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon, and thank you very much for attentive listening. So today, පුණ්‍යානුමෝදනාව ලලිත ජයසිංහ, මාලනී විජේසුන්දර, සුමුදු විජේසුන්දර ඇතුළු පවුල්වල සහභාගීත්වයෙන් අද දානය පිරිනැමලා තිනවා. නැසී ගිය සියලුම ඥාතීන්ට හිතමිතුරන්ට මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් වේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරලා තිනවා. So from the morning that we have maintained our sila, the precepts, and we were able to practice meditation, mindfulness, develop concentration, and to have fair amount of practice, and again participated in the Dhamma discussion and listened to Dhamma sermon. Whatever the merits that we accumulated, let's share these merits with all the past relatives and with all the beings in need of merits, and whoever the celestial beings who are delighted with these merits. And let's wish these merits help us also to attain path, fruition, nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our minds, let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා සාදු සාදු සාදු